Are you ready to take your striking game to the next level? Then you've got to get the focus ball. Dramatically improved footwork, timing, reflex, hand-eye coordination, head movement, and striking IQ. Lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere with the focus ball.
And don't forget to use that promo code DBN to get 10% off of your order.
Hi, I'm Angie, and you're watching Dante's Vaccination.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So we already know by now, Devin Haney, he has said that he would never lose to a white boy, and that caused up a little bit of a stir when he said it. Now, before I get into what Paulie Malignaggi said in response to this, I want to say Devin Haney better make sure he's always on his A game for the rest of his career, because that's a bold statement to make. We heard Bernard Hopkins make the same statement, and right after that, he ended up losing to a white boy. A lot of people don't know this, but Oscar De La Hoya even said something years back that came back to bite him in the ass. And the reason why you guys don't know about it, because this was way before the emergence of social media. Well, after Oscar De La Hoya's very controversial win over Pernell Whitaker, which a lot of people, including HBO's Larry Merchant, thought that Pernell Whitaker won the fight, Oscar De La Hoya, he ended up getting the nod, and he turned down a rematch that everyone, including Pernell Whitaker, was pushing for. Oscar did not want a rematch. So Pernell Whitaker, after De La Hoya turned down a rematch, Pernell Whitaker, he said to reporters that Oscar De La Hoya is afraid to fight the brothers. In return, Oscar De La Hoya, he responded by saying black fighters have no heart. Soon as you hit them in the body, they give up right away. And it's so ironic that Oscar would say that, because the first couple of guys he lost to as a pro were black. And the first time he got knocked out was by a black guy, and the knockout came from a body punch. And that's once again why you got to be careful with what you say. You got to make sure you're definitely on your A game if you're going to say something that bold. Now notice, you guys have never heard me call Oscar De La Hoya a racist because he made that comment. Because I don't believe that any of the things that Devin Haney, Oscar De La Hoya, or Bernard Hopkins have said is racist. I believe it's disrespectful, and once again, it could possibly catch up with you, but it's not racist. Now, before I continue, I gotta show some love to my sponsors. Check it out, guys. You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Starz. They have a massive video-on-demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR, so you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month, and once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation. Now, with that being said, let's get into what Paulie Malignaggi said in response to Devin Haney's white boy comment. Now, when this article or this story was first sent to me, I thought it was just going to basically be some politically correct type of response with Paulie saying, you know, it's inappropriate, it's wrong for Devin Haney to say that, and that's pretty much the end of the interview. To my surprise, Paulie Malignaggi actually didn't have a problem with Devin Haney saying what he said. In fact, he actually welcomed the conversation because it gave Paulie an invitation to tell the boxing world what he thinks about black versus white, etc., etc., etc. So Paulie Malignaggi, he responds by saying, Devin Haney is wrong because black people had dominated the sport of boxing all the way up until about the 90s. And then after that, that's when white fighters took over. Eastern European white fighters took over. Paulie Malignaggi pretty much said that black fighters have had their time and now the sport is dominated by white boxers. Slow down, Paulie. Slow down. Man, it's a lot of unpacking to do with that statement. A whole lot of unpacking. And when I say unpacking, I'm talking about unpacking with facts. Now, the first thing I thought about, this is just me, the first thing I thought about when I heard Paulie say this, I thought about something Eddie Murphy said in his stand-up when he did Raw. And he talked about how Italians, after they come out of the movie theater watching Rocky, man, they walking around with their chests up. Boy, they feeling good, boy. They ready to fight, and they just feeling like they're on top of the world after watching Rocky win another big fight. Apparently, this is the way Paulie Malignaggi feels. Surprisingly, by the way, this is the way Larry Merchant feels. I did a video about what he had said a couple of weeks back. Right after Tyson Fury beat Deontay Wilder, Larry Merchant said that Deontay Wilder was the last black hope at the heavyweight division. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like Larry Bird winning the NBA Finals. And soon as he wins the NBA Finals, you have a lot of fans saying, oh, well, it's over for the black basketball players because now this is a white sport. Now the white man dominates this sport. In fact, you had a lot of white people that were saying just that when Larry Bird won the finals, when the Celtics won the finals. But guys, it's a little premature. Matter of fact, it's very premature to say things like this. Okay, so once again, let's break down what Paulie Malignaggi said. Now, Paulie, he said that black fighters had dominated the sport all the way up until the 90s. He talked about how, at different points, the Italians, the Irish, and the Jews, they had their time in the sport of boxing, and then it was a time when blacks had their time, and now it's the Eastern European fighters that have their time after the 90s, meaning from 2000 till present day. I mean, so if that's the case, shouldn't they have crowned an Eastern European fighter as the fighter of the century or the fighter of the decade? Because in the last 30 years, the last 3 decades, there has not been an Eastern European fighter that has been crowned the fighter of the decade. Floyd Mayweather has been universally crowned as the fighter of the century. He's also been crowned as the fighter of the decade, the same decade that Paulie Malignaggi says that white fighters are dominating the sport. Listen, guys, there is no doubt about it that there are some really good, talented fighters from Eastern Europe right now. There's no doubt about it. Of course, Vasyl Lomachenko is the first one that comes to mind, because there's no doubt he's pound for pound, top 3, top 5, one of the best fighters in the world. I personally have him at number 2. And the majority of organizations have Terrence Crawford, including myself, at number 1. Now, see, once again, going back to what Paulie said, if this was a sport now dominated by Eastern European fighters, why didn't Vasyl Lomachenko, when he was fighting at 130 and Crawford was fighting at 140, Crawford called out Vasyl Lomachenko? So why didn't Lomachenko, knowing that the Eastern Europeans are dominating boxing right now, why didn't he fight Crawford at a catchweight? Because Crawford had already agreed to fight Lomachenko at a catchweight. You have 2 of the best fighters in the world, pound for pound, but you have one guy who's willing to fight the other pound for pound fighter. And the other one is not willing to do it. He's not willing to move up in weight and take that chance. It's crazy because you had Dan Rafael and other white reporters that started to say Lomachenko would have beat Mayweather's ass, etc., etc. But yet you have a fighter, a current fighter who's fighting right now, in Terrence Crawford. Why don't you say Lomachenko will beat Crawford's ass? See, you'll say he'll beat Floyd Mayweather because that's a fantasy match that will never happen. But when Crawford is sitting only 10 pounds north of Lomachenko, once again, remember, this is before Lomachenko moved to 135. So if Lomachenko moved to 135 already, that means Lomachenko and Crawford, they could have fought somewhere at 137.5, and it could have been a fight easily made if Lomachenko really wanted to fight. So let me revise what I just said. If Crawford is only sitting about 2 or 3 pounds north of Lomachenko, why wouldn't you be pushing for a Crawford versus Lomachenko fight when both of these fighters are pound for pound the top 2 best fighters in the world? It's a rhetorical question, right? We know if the roles were reversed, Terrence Crawford would still move up in weight to fight Lomachenko. He would still be going after Lomachenko if the whole boxing world was saying that this is the man to beat. Lomachenko is pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Crawford would be aggressively going after him, and we all know that to be the case. Now let's talk about some Eastern European fighters versus black fighters, since Paulie Malignaggi once again brought this up. You know, I remember when I was covering the Terrence Crawford versus Victor Postal fight. Now, before we even get to the fight, let me give you a little history before the fight got signed. Now, for those of you guys who don't remember, Victor Postal was the first man to knock out the machine, Lucas Matisse, a fight that he was a heavy underdog in. In that fight, he surprisingly made easy work of Lucas Matisse and became a champion in Terrence Crawford's division. At this time, because Terrence Crawford wasn't fighting Victor next, all of a sudden, I see all these fans saying that Terrence Crawford is ducking Victor Postal. Many people were saying that he was ducking Victor Postal. Soon as they fight against each other, now this brings me back to me sitting ringside with some other reporters, and I remember this Mexican guy, he was telling me that Eastern European fighters, you know, they're pretty much starting to dominate the sport right now. And I just said to him, I said, well, it's interesting you say that, because now we have another Eastern European fighter going up against an American black fighter in Terrence Crawford. So we're going to see how this turns out. And we've seen how it turned out. Of course, Terrence Crawford, he dominated Victor Postal. Another Eastern European versus black fighter was Sergey Kovalev versus Andre Ward. Now, it's interesting because Sergey Kovalev, before he fought Andre Ward, he was considered pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. Some websites had him at pound for pound number 1, the best fighter in the world. Now, keep in mind, Andre Ward, he was already chasing another Eastern European fighter, which was Gennady Golovkin, a man that said he's willing to fight anyone from 154 to 175, right? Because he had already started calling out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Carl Froch at 168, and then all of a sudden Andre Ward said, I'll fight you. Keep in mind, this is at the time when Andre Ward was considered pound for pound the best fighter in the world. Now, once again, if we're listening to Paulie Malignaggi, Eastern European fighters are supposed to be dominating the sport. Why in the world would Gennady Golovkin not be chasing someone like Andre Ward? That should be easy picking for a dominant fighter like Gennady Golovkin, since it's the Eastern European fighter's time right now, right? I guess Golovkin didn't believe that, because Andre Ward was the last fighter that Golovkin wanted to fight. Golovkin was willing to fight anyone but Andre Ward, right? So then, since he refused to fight Andre Ward, Golovkin Andre Ward practicing what he preaches, he basically showed not only the world, but he showed Golovkin, okay, you won't move up and fight me? I'm gonna show you that I can move up and fight pound for pound the best light heavyweight in the world and beat him. That's exactly what Ward did. Moved up to 175, beat Kovalev twice, knocking him out in the rematch. So after Floyd Mayweather was considered the long-reigning pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, that title got passed down to Andre Ward. And once again, Golovkin had an opportunity to fight for it, but he knew he would lose that fight. And all the boxing fans in the sport, if you watch boxing, you all knew that Golovkin would lose that fight. See, guys, there's a difference from telling the truth and just wishful thinking. Just telling people the way you wish things were. Because when it comes to Gennady Golovkin, this is exactly what HBO wanted to do. They figured if a black guy like Floyd Mayweather, could dominate the whole sport of boxing, become the biggest attraction in the sport of boxing. And there are so many racist people who hate his guts. Imagine if we had a white guy to replace Floyd Mayweather with. Then that means he would be bigger than Floyd Mayweather because no one would hate him, everyone would love him, etc., 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 right? This is what the projection was when they invested in Gennady Golovkin, HBO. And boy, did that backfire on them. In fact, you had execs that actually got fired from HBO because they were in such a hurry to put Golovkin on pay-per-view. And as soon as they put him on pay-per-view, he ended up getting some of the lowest pay-per-view numbers ever, at least for a fighter that was supposed to be on his level. Golovkin's first pay-per-view did under 100,000 pay-per-view buys, compared to Floyd Mayweather's first pay-per-views, which did over 300,000. And this is the reason why professionals needs to be careful when they're listening to decafs, when they're listening to or reading comments on the internet, because those comments on the internet can lead you into the wrong direction. It can lead you off a cliff. And that's exactly what happened to some of these HBO execs when they put Golovkin on pay-per-view. They were listening to all these casual ass fans. They were listening to all these casual fans. He's a superstar. He's the man. He's bigger than Floyd. He's this and he's that. They were listening to all of that just to find out it was not the case. And it would never be the case. It was wishful thinking. It was what they wanted, but it wasn't reality. Just like Paulie Malignaggi's delusional statement is not reality. Listen, before I moved out of the country and moved to Thailand, I was going to amateur tournaments all the time, watching the best fighters in the world, the best amateur fighters in the world at age 13, 14, 15. And I've seen the next Errol Spence's, the next Floyd Mayweather's, the next Roy Jones's, the next Sugar Ray Leonard's, the next De La Hoya's, the next Fernando Vargas's. But for the sake of this video, since once again Paulie Malignaggi said that blacks are finished, my point is blacks will never be finished in the sport of boxing. Just like blacks will never be finished in the NFL or the NBA. As long as you have boxing gyms throughout the country, black fighters will always play a major role in the sport of boxing. You know, I'll close out with talking about Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury is another reason why Paulie Malignaggi is saying this. Once again, after Paulie seen what Tyson did to Deontay Wilder, it was like he just came out of that movie theater watching that Rocky movie. But what people like Paulie and Larry Merchant have to understand is just because Tyson Fury dominated Deontay Wilder does not speak for the whole race in terms of his skill set and everything. What I'm trying to say is, we know that Deontay Wilder once again was not known for being this very skillful fighter. He wasn't known as being the smartest fighter in the ring, the guy with the best defense, the slickest, or anything like that. Deontay Wilder, he beat you with his willpower, with his heart, and with his right hand. He was willing to walk through fire just to land that right hand. My point is, Tyson Fury hasn't been in enough fights against different black opponents to just automatically say, oh yeah, well now Deontay Wilder is the last black hope, etc., etc., etc. That's extremely premature is my point. When Jack Johnson became the first black heavyweight champion of the world, that's when they coined the phrase, the Great White Hope. Because Jack Johnson, he was beating tons of white opponents, nothing but white opponents. He just kept knocking white opponents out, beating them back to back to back to back to back. That's why they coined that phrase, the Great White Hope. We got to find some great white hope to beat this guy, right? Tyson Fury hasn't been in that situation. Tyson has only beat one black guy, you know? And I don't even think he's going to be around long enough to be fighting this long list of black fighters. So my point is, Tyson Fury, he dominated Deontay Wilder. He didn't dominate the whole race. Once again, Deontay Wilder, he's no Errol Spence. He's no Terrence Crawford. He's no Gervonta Tank Davis. He's no Devin Haney. He's no Shakur Stevenson. At the end of the day, it's not that easy to reach the top of the mountain and become king. But it's far more difficult to keep the title, to remain king, to fend off all the young, hungry lions coming after you. That's the hard part. And something else I wanted to mention, you guys may notice, when it comes to Devin Haney, he was saying he personally would not lose to some white boy. He never said that black fighters are superior to white boys. He never said that this is not a white man's sport, this is a black man's sport. But this is what Paulie Malignaggi basically said, by way of contrast. He said that now this sport is dominated by white fighters, which once again was a very delusional thing for Paulie Malignaggi to say. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
Hey, made it this far on my lonely. Be careful who you really call your homies. Niggas hate when you move and keep it low key.
Started from the bottom, now I'm halfway there. Bitch, I'm coming for the top, so get up off my chair. Bitch, get off. Jordan when it's clutch in 98, game 6. All these struggles with these bills has got my mind ain't shit.
That right there is my man Versa, and the track is on my Lonely. I want you to go to his YouTube channel and subscribe, man. Show that love for more dope tracks like this. I'll put all his information in the description box. Also subscribe to my man Rodriguez Jackson's channel. He has a new YouTube channel where he uploads boxing tournaments, Golden Glove tournaments. He covers Caribbean festivals, fitness workouts, and more.